Welcome back to the show, everybody. What a difference a day makes. Listen to some of these headlines. Who is the real Satoshi? We'll give you the update on the Craig Wright trial. He does claim that he is the real and original Satoshi Nakamoto. Australia baseball team in Bitcoin. How about the basketball team in Bitcoin? You know what? I go one step further. One of the most famous sports venues has just been renamed by a crypto company. If you ever wanted to know if crypto's coming, I think you're getting your answer, because here's more evidence of it. Countries race for CBDCs, and where is the Fed on the CBDC adoption, and where is that paper they said they were going to release at the end of summer? It's still not out. Well, we have some of the Fed board governors, and we're going to hear some of their opinions about why they don't think we need a CBDC, and we're going to opine on that. Stuart Alderati legal team and new legislative proposal. We got some thoughts on that as well you need to hear, and we're going to get a TA update for XRP. What is going on with price? Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove, and everything that we're talking about here today. $2.627 trillion market cap for crypto. We're up just about 0.3% here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. 60,000 plus for Bitcoin. The whole market's trying to climb back off of the sell-off that we've seen off the last 2 days here. Ethereum at $4,200 plus, and Solana is at $219 plus. Cardano is at $188, well below the $2 market's been at, and XRP at 111. All those gains from 120, 128 or above where we were, now we're at 111. So we'll see. The climb back begins. Right now, the range of XRP price is 106.97 to 112.31. We can see we got a lot of work to do. But you know what? We're going to hear from TA analyst Dark Defender before we get out of here today. And I think you're going to like what he's got to say. So looking at this is an update on the Craig Wright trial. Who is the real Satoshi? Right? And it says here, this began last week throughout the Freedmen focused on the attack on Wright's alleged history of theft, forgery, and deceit. So as you can see, this trial is opening up and pulling all the skeletons out of the closet. This is going to be interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because I hope through this we can put this to rest, whether Craig Wright is or isn't, and the Kleiman family, and whether he was or wasn't. Everybody's got their own suspicions. I know some of us believe that, nevertheless, that it was created by a 3-letter agency. So hopefully we get some clarity on this going forward. We will see. Right now, we look at this. Perth Heat, the most successful baseball team in Australia, has started paying its players in Bitcoin, becoming the first professional sports club around the globe to make such a move. Let me tell you, this is just really how you get adoption going on and get a stir about educating the people that don't understand what crypto is. And gosh, I hate that they call them cryptocurrencies. I really wish they had just called them blockchain networks, and there's tokens that live on the blockchain networks. They're new payment networks. That's all it is. We don't have to call them currencies, but nevertheless, I don't want to call them securities either. Unless they actually are. NYDIG partners with Houston Rockets basketball franchise, plans to pay team in Bitcoin. Now here you go. It gets even better. Crypto.com has struck a 20-year deal with AEG, the owner and operator of the Staples Center in Los Angeles. They're going to rename one of the most famous sports venues in the United States of America. It is now going to be the Crypto.com Arena. Come on in. Come on in. Is this meaning anything to you guys? Because it's speaking to me in waves. I can tell you this. It is coming to me. This is wonderful. And then on the other side, let's go to the government side, right? Let's take away from the commercial advertisement side, right, to the masses, and let's go to the government side. Over 60 countries have entered into the race for their own digital currency. Now, this gets interesting. We see here the Central Bank of Russia Federation may test a digital ruble for more than a year before it finally launches a CBDC, the bank's chair had said. Now listen to this. Central Bank of Peru is developing a central bank digital currency, said the president, Julio Varela, I guess his name is. And then here we see, and meanwhile in China, we know what's going on there. They, in fact, are leading the digital dollar race, right? But federal governors for the Federal Reserve don't see a reason to issue a central bank digital currency. I can't help but feel like this is a planned stall. Right? And we're going to have some thoughts on this, but let me just give you this for a second here. At least 3 federal governors have said that they don't see a reason for the Fed to issue a central bank digital currency. If you get down into this, Federal Reserve Governor Michelle Bowman said last week she does not see much of a reason for the Fed to issue a U.S. central bank digital currency given the safety and efficiency of the U.S. payment system. She said, "I'm not really sure that I understand or see the business case for creating it." Jesus, Michelle. The Fed is currently putting together a report discussing the pros and cons of issuing a digital dollar. The report expected to be released soon. Another Federal Reserve governor who is skeptical about the Fed issuing a digital dollar is Randall Quarles. Remember, he's going to be resigning at the end of next month. He said on October 20th at the Milken Institute conference that he does not understand the arguments in favor of issuing a central bank digital currency. Well, do you understand that you shouldn't have done insider trading? Because that was the reason that you're leaving. Until somebody answers me the question why, I don't understand why we would devote the enormous amount of resources and technological risk and significant disruption to the current operation of the financial system that would come from the central bank saying we're going to provide this digital currency. Well, I could just speak to that for a second. It talks about the technological risk. Do you think it would be a greater technological risk than the one we're already in right now? It is obvious that the market infrastructure for payments and the markets, whether you're talking about stock market or you're talking about payments, is obviously vulnerable and antiquated. We have seen many, many hacks along the way. Blockchain can absolutely help to stop that. Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller also doubts whether the Fed should issue a digital dollar. He explained in October discussing with the OMFIF that the digital dollar would put the Fed in direct competition with commercial banks. Well, we have thoughts on this. So with the central bank digital currency, you're asking a very direct question. Should the central bank be more involved in processing payments for household firms in a way that allows them to circumvent the banking system? That is what a CBDC account is doing. That doesn't have to be set up that way. Christopher. So you should compete with the banking system or not? In August, the Fed governor noted, "I remain skeptical that a Federal Reserve CBDC would solve any major problems confronting U.S. payment system." Well, let's understand this. Okay, one, developing a wholesale central bank digital currency back end doesn't have you competing with the commercial banks. You can eliminate commercial banking from the wholesale back end business of the Fed settling payments between other central banks. That's not really an issue. So we can eliminate that concern if it stays wholesale back end, in my mind. Number 2, they say they don't see the need to issue one, but the reality in my mind is I kind of don't either. You don't need to issue one. I think what you could do is you could get along with a public-private relationship with somebody like Ripple and the fact that they have XRP in escrow, and you could use XRP as your wholesale back-end CBDC. And guess what? And because we know from the R3 case several years ago that they in fact had an option contract for $1.3 billion worth of XRP at the time, that they do have option contracts, and we noted in the SEC complaint that they did non-cash agreements, which is pre-allocate XRP to different entities. And if we are correct to speculate that they've done that with other central banks around the world, then essentially the wholesale back-end CBDC could be XRP for the Fed if they wanted to. Doesn't mean they have to, but if they wanted to. And then you say, well, how do you resolve the front end for retail and a digital dollar? Because all of this digital business is really about just a small handful of things. Securing networks, getting rid of the antiquated, vulnerable issue that exists currently today, making it scalable, making it efficient, and bringing the velocity of money back to the formula that we need to reignite this global economy. and all of the printing that's happened with the actual real paper dollars, right? So, and to counter all of that, you need the velocity of money to solve that issue. So on the front end for retail, again, as Ripple has suggested, the public-private relationship with something like USD coin from Jeremy Allaire and Circle. Look, I'm not an economist, right? But I mean, this seems to be like something that could work. Stuart Alderati, he doubles down too, and he believes so as well. I believe not all my thoughts there, but the public-private relationship to speak of. Ripple's general counsel noted that the SEC is doubling down on regulation by enforcement rather than setting clear rules, which needs to be curbed before it drives away the entire decentralized industry from the United States. This is exactly right. And I believe that Gary Gensler is going to continue to push for what he wants while he's at the SEC until Congress steps in. I really do believe this, and I believe they need to step in, and we may actually see that. Looking right here, we know as a reminder, if you haven't seen this from yesterday, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but Ripple stressed on the public-private collaboration in the future crypto legislation. Ripple cited 3 pieces of legislation pending Eliminate Barriers to Innovation Act, and then proposed the Securities Clarities Act, and then proposed the Digital Commodities Exchange Act. We went over this yesterday, and just to show you, it's right here. If you haven't had a chance to read it, you can find it on my Twitter. But these things are very, very simple, clear bills that don't harm the agencies and how they regulate in their purview currently today. In fact, what they do is provide clarity about how they should regulate and what they have the ability to regulate in the digital asset space without harming what they already oversee. That, to me, is a plan for us to unleash innovation. Now, with that being said, there's another thought here, and it's BitBoy right here, and shout out to BitBoy. I want you to listen to what he says here, and we kind of touched on this yesterday. I mean, think about the oddity that you're being sued by the United States market regulator, the SEC, and yet you're proposing, while being sued by that agency, you're trying to propose sensible legislation for the entire crypto space and not just Ripple and XRP. Think about the oddity of that. Shouldn't it be the SEC proposing these things to the government to get this done? I think it really is glaringly obvious of a couple things. One, the SEC is certainly out of their lane. Two, when it comes to this, because, and the reason I say they're out of their lane is because they're trying to govern and regulate, I should say, by enforcement, and that is not a solution, right? So when you think of that, now listen to this, because when it comes to the case, you have to wonder with the legislation they're recommending, it's beneficial for the clarity of the CFTC, it's beneficial for the clarity of the SEC. Might there be a deal a lot further along, possibly even done and in the works of settlement between Ripple and the SEC?
Here's what I think is really interesting about Brad Garlinghouse coming out and saying this. He's saying, government, we have a responsibility to work together. You think that he thinks they're getting the death penalty? The ball's on this man. You know what I mean? To come out and say that, obviously he knows what's happening. He knows what's coming down. He already knows the end result of this case, or he would not be coming out and saying this. What company that's under the proposed death penalty of the SEC, as far as the token goes, the XRP token, comes out and says, government, let's work hand in hand? They already know what is happening there. Here's what I think is really interesting about Brad Garlinghouse coming out and saying this.
And listen, I think it's such a great point that he's making, and I believe it too. I believe that, look how feckless it would make Ripple and Brad Garlinghouse look to suggest these things, and then nothing ever happened from it. I don't believe that Brad Garlinghouse would put himself in a position where he would make Ripple or himself look weak. In fact, what I see him doing is proposing a very, very real solution. So this gets pretty damn interesting here as we move forward. Now, let's take a look at this. Let me see if I can get this up here really quickly for us. Okay, here we go right here. This is Dark Defender. Let's take a look at price. We'll change gears here now and wrap this thing up. He says on October 31st, we expected a breakout for XRP by December 13th. Here are the current levels, he says. Resistance at 119, 133. Critical support now at 101. And see, listen, I just want to show this because he says you can see how even the weekly triangle is narrowed down. I always say XRP has not finalized the pattern yet. Have a nice day. And he shows a couple charts. But what we need to see here is this. He shows the RSI dipping back down, which means there's a lot of headroom here for it to really open up when it does finally break out. And looking right here, you can see how it's narrowing here. So things are getting to an inevitable place where we'll find out if it in fact will ever break out. I know a lot of us are skeptical, and sometimes I even feel that way too, but ultimately I do know that things are going to happen. And for me, and this is my personal speculation, I'm not giving financial advice here, and neither is Dark Defender or anyone else, but for me, all of this in my mind, regardless of whether we see a spike in price prior to, I'm waiting for the case to end and be resolved, right? And then after that, I'm waiting to see a flood of financial institutions and banks begin to make their public announcement that they will begin using it in a large way because it's beneficial to them to do so. Those are the big things that I'm kind of waiting for. And I'm also waiting for some legislation to come out to get these agencies where they need to be so they don't stifle innovation like it's happening right now. So for me, looking at this, it's nice to see, what the upside may be, what the downside may be for supports, what we need to bust through these resistances in order to get to those higher levels. But more importantly, understanding what those support levels for me are. Because if I ultimately believe that it is the case, legislation, an IPO, right, announcement of banks and everybody around the world beginning to really use the asset because it does work, it does do what it says it can do, and it has been doing it, then that's the real moment for me for growth in the asset itself, for me. Right? So all of this up until then of seeing support and resistance for me is just a bit comforting for me to understand what's happening until those major fundamental events actually take place. Look, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below. I got to tell you, it's massive news coming from I Trust Capital. No more monthly fees, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? If you sign up right now, and get in there and get yourself an account, you can get $100 worth of Bitcoin. But I don't know how long that's going to last, but there's no more monthly fees. I've told you since day one, it is the best IRA, crypto IRA on the planet, bar none. And the only thing better than buying crypto is buying tax-free crypto. Don't forget to check out all the other links in the description and comment box as well. There's some great products and services in there for you guys. And by the way, Link 2 is back on the board, baby. Looky here. So Link 2 is fully subscribed right now, but I think Ripple's back up, and check out Uphold. I think I don't know how much Uphold is left, but I wouldn't mess around. You know yourself. I've shown you many times how these things get filled, and you never know when the last fill is going to actually take place. That's going to do it for me. Make sure you check out all the links in the description and comment section, and I'll catch all of you on the next one.